Before I get into this video, I'd like to give a shout out to Knight of Darkness Angel Luna for this bloody fantastic fan art. I'm planning on making this my new channel icon, and I'll also leave a link to their channel in the description. Okay, on with the vid. Und Panzer is an example of a creative writing technique that some would question the effectiveness of, which is working backwards from a cool concept. For example, your concept starts off with cute anime girls battling each other in tanks, so naturally you would want to find ways of creating a compelling narrative out of, or you could just introduce even more wacky shit. I mean, I'd be fine with either. This is a show that puts a big giddy smile on my face, because someone evidently had lots of fun making it. The animation's quite creative with its use of 3D, and while the characters may be a little one-dimensional, they are still fun to watch. But we're not here to talk about the characters. If you look carefully at the title of this anime, you may notice that its English meaning is Girls and Tank. This implies that the tanks are on the same level as the girls, and as a result, this episode of Best Girl Wars will be converted into an experimental episode of
Best Tank Wars.
I want to focus on the real protagonists of this anime, namely the 6 main tanks used by Ooarai High School. But before then, I want to talk about a few honourable mentions that didn't make it into the main 6. St. Gloriana's Churchill tank is designed by Vauxhall Motors and is meant to be one of the most British tanks out there. However, if they wanted to get a proper British assault vehicle, they should have used the classic Ford Focus. Saunders High School uses Shermans, despite them being shown with dune buggies. Because of this, I'm very disappointed that they didn't just go with the tried and tested strategy of strapping shitloads of C4 to it and driving it towards the flag tank. The Gamers join Oorai's tank lineup later in the series, riding the Type Chi Nu, which is surprising to me because I'd think they'd be riding the Type Chu Ni. The Automotive Club also join the fray, and they have a special technique where they can fix their tank on the go, because they, unlike Saunders High, have probably played a Battlefield game. A shout out should go to the T-34s that Pravda use, not only because they are still widely used today, but also because they apparently enable telepathy, as proven by the Netflix version of the Katusha scene. Obviously, this is a joke, and this was a censor made to the Netflix version for some reason, alongside the removal of a song used by Kuro Morimine. Now, it's understandable why they'd want to replace the song that Kuro Morimine used, but I'm a little confused about the German song they chose to replace it with. Just seems to clash with the tone a little. Although I do want to mention the scene when they sent out the mouse, because it was very interesting. It was the first time I learned that a tank can have its own fucking boss theme. But with the honourable mentions out of the way, it's time to talk about the main competitors. We have Team Anglerfish's Panzer IV, Team Turtles 38T, Team Ducks Type 98B, Team Hippo's Sterngeschütz, Team Rabbit M3 Lee, and Team Mallard's Char B1. I will be judging each of them and awarding points. At the end, we will be adding up the points to confirm who is the best tank. Starting off the histories of these tanks, I want to get this out of the way as soon as possible, because I'm mainly just going to be skim reading their Wikipedia articles. The Panzer IV made up over 30% of the German army's total tanks during World War II, which is very impressive, but it also served as the chassis for the Und Panzer, which appeared later in the series. The Type 89B was the world's first mass-produced diesel tank. Being designed in 1928, it makes it the oldest tank used by Ooarai High School. However, it only saw limited service during World War II due to the more amphibious nature of the battles. The 38T is a Czech model that was later assimilated into the German army's lineup of tanks. This also had a rather big presence in the Peruvian army in their war against Ecuador. The M3 Lee was an American make, but was extensively used by British forces during the North African campaign. The British then made their own variants, but I heard they were a bit shit. The Char B1 was made by the well-known car company Renault, who were also responsible for many of France's tanks during World War I. The B1 was designed with a smaller turret, so it was cheaper to produce. Finally, the Sterngeschütz saw most of its success as a training vehicle, but was hard to maneuver, which made it so that it was mainly seen as a cheaper alternative to the Panzer models. Right, now I can stop acting like a professional. For this next category, we're going to go ad hominem and look at the most important aspect of the tank, which is, of course, the drip. I'm going to come out and say it. Team Anglerfish have no drip. The tank just has the logo on it, nothing personalised. This is not to compromise the lovely design of the Panzer, but even then they could have done something with their uniform, because even the hall monitors have their cool looking iPads and megaphones. Team Rabbit aren't quite my cup of tea with the solid pink design, but even then their logo is quite creative, and thanks to ReZero, I can now imagine that rabbit eating its way into my innards. Continuing on with the solid colour schemes, Team Turtle's solid gold tanks are, once again, not my cup of tea, but I still respect it. They had to grind for their camo. Team Hippo are the definition of ballin', but at what cost, as their design lacks stealth due to the massive flags getting them spotted. But even after they all toned down their modifications, they still keep their unique uniforms, which are what I imagine the village people to look like in the Wolfenstein universe. But the real winners have got to be Team Duck. Not only do they have a coordinated outfit, they also have a minimalistic yet effective design. It gets to the point very quickly, namely that they would rather be playing volleyball instead of driving tanks, even though watching an anime called Girls und der Volleyball would be kind of boring. Finally, we've got to talk about what these tanks actually do in the anime. Team Rabbit are very much the little sisters of the group, by which I mean they get stuck all the time and have to get their older siblings to get them out. This is also true of Team Mallard, but in fairness, they have to ride one of the more unique tanks out of the bunch, and on top of this, they had less time to train, so props to them. But that being said, they should have chosen a better name for their team, because now, instead of seeing them as Team Mallard, the hall monitors, I instead see them as Team Mallardy, Discord moderators. For a team that didn't really seem to know what they were getting themselves into, Team Turtle are actually pretty adept at fighting. For example, in the battle against Pravda, they slide into the fray, destroy fairly obviously placed canisters on the backs of their enemies, and then they do an unintended roll. As someone who recently finished Horizon Zero Dawn, I appreciate that. Team Anglerfish are always the ones to score the final kills, which is good, but bear in mind, throughout the actual matches, they don't really do that much. In fact, I want to highlight Teams Duck and Hippo again. Both have outstanding maneuvers, but there's one subtle act that clenches it, and that is the fact that Team Hippo's Erwin manages to act as the spotter from outside the tank, not only while wearing a hat that could possibly obstruct their vision, but also they do this while at risk from being hit by live fucking ammunition. So there you have it, Team Hippo win, and the Sterngeschütz gets the title of Best Tank Waifu. It's probably the only time someone's described a hippo as a waifu since Moto Moto, since they're actually terrifying creatures, especially when you look at the pictures of them and the statistics of them. Truly, these are the tsunderes of the animal kingdom.